Welcome everybody to our class on new venture creation. As you know, last week we just had our first class. It was just an introductory class talking a little bit about the course itself and over the syllabus and gradables and things of that nature. Today's going to be the first class. We're going to actually have a lecture of some substance. And it's going to be from chapter 1 of your textbook. And chapter 1 is called Your Big Idea. Your Big Idea. If you think about it, most businesses, I would think, most startups, most entrepreneurial ventures usually start up because somebody has an idea. They think it's a good idea, good enough to start a business, so you have a big idea. So that's what this chapter is about. It's about, one of the first things you want to talk about or think about as you put together a business, your big idea. And under this, I have, let's take a look here, basically 6 or 7 points here. Just to kind of introduce you to the concept. Let's start off with the first point. It's an interesting question that your author poses. And he says, what's the value of your great entrepreneurial idea? You have this idea. What's the value of it? Can you sell it? What value do you have? Can you go put it in a bank account someplace or whatever? And the interesting thing is, no matter how good your idea may be, the actual value of your idea is probably, at least according to your author, and I don't think your author's wrong, nothing. Sounds odd. Why is my idea worth nothing? Well, if you think about it, ideas are innumerable. Think how many ideas you had just since we started watching this video, and through the course of a day, and then all the ideas you have over, weeks and months, and your colleagues, etc. Ideas are innumerable. In fact, one of the things you might want to do is take a look in your textbook. I think it's on page 8. There's an interesting quote by Mark Twain with regard to ideas you might want to know. But, basically your author is saying, hey, listen, ideas they're nothing but electrochemical brain reactions. I guess I could think of other ways to refer to them, but it's probably accurate. Electrochemical brain reactions. Let me give you an example here. Back in the early 1960s, the United States decided that it was going to go into space, start sending people eventually to the moon, maybe other places as well, but eventually to the moon. So it started off simple. We're just going to shoot somebody up and pretty much up and down, and we're going to shoot them up and go around the world once or twice or something like that, and eventually we'll start going towards the moon. So when they started this, and I think it was with the Mercury rockets that they were using, the Mercury program they had, they had one astronaut in a rocket, and they shoot them up into the air or whatever into space. And while they did have computers to do this, they didn't have anything like we think of today as computers. And frankly, if they had even had the computer that's on your smartphone, they probably would have been far ahead of where they were back then. So what they did with regard to this is they gave the astronaut all sorts of forms. We want you to fill out as you go up. What do you experience? What do you see? Da 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 da. And it was paper forms, and here's a pen. Jot this stuff down. Okay, great. So there's a million things you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do when you got to launch somebody into space, and they do all those things, and eventually the astronaut gets in the capsule, and they launch the astronaut up, and the astronaut's communicating with them through a radio or something. Do this, that, and the other. And one of the things the astronaut starts to write. The pen doesn't work. He keeps writing. You've done this. You've had pens that don't work, and you try all sorts of things, and he couldn't get it to work. So when he eventually lands and whatever, and they pick him out of the water and all this other stuff. One of the things they're not happy about at all is he couldn't write anything down, or virtually nothing down. So the next time they send an astronaut into space, they say, my goodness, first off, got checked, does a pen work before you go up in space? And they probably, gave him 2 or 3 different pens and said, hey, if the one doesn't work, try the others. This is really important. So they fire him up into space, and he goes up into space, and he pulls out the first pen. It doesn't work. The second pen, it doesn't work. And the third pen, it doesn't work. And I don't know if they're using, pens, like this, or, the pens that you would click on or whatever, but they weren't working. lands, etc., fish them out of water, and NASA, the space agency, the National Association or whatever, it's going nuts. What can we do? So they get together, the engineers and the scientists, etc. And they say, oh my God, we got to come up with a pen that works. Why isn't this pen working or that pen? And they concluded that it wasn't working, or they weren't working, because there's no ink. There's no gravity to pull the ink down to the tip of the pen. When you go in space, there's no gravity, and so they said, oh, we've got a problem. We have to design a pen that is an anti-gravity pen that will work up in space. So between the engineers and the scientists, they go at this at work, and they've got universities, everything working on this, and it takes some time. And of course, the federal government, they probably spent millions and millions of dollars, which in today's lingo would probably be hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. And after a while, 6 months, a year, whatever, they come out with this really tremendous anti-gravity pen. The interesting thing was, while all this was going on, there was one other country in the world that was also sending up astronauts, it called them cosmonauts, into space. And it too had the pen problem. So when its astronaut or cosmonaut went up into space and couldn't get the pen to work, no problem, pulled out a pencil. So this other country, which was the Soviet Union, which is Russia and a whole bunch of other countries, it solved the problem by a pencil. How did we solve it? Well, we came up with a new idea. We came up with an anti-gravity pen that took us months or whatever, years to come up with, millions of dollars, etc. Interestingly, I think they still use the anti-gravity pen, but the point is, what was the value of that idea, the anti-gravity pen? Well, if you think about it, if all we needed to do was use this instead, the value probably wasn't very high. So again, what's the value of your idea? Probably nothing. But your author adds a couple of points here, and the points are really pretty good as well. And the author points out that, many ideas, while they're not necessarily valuable, they do have potential, at least some of them have potential. And ideas certainly are the first step towards developing some sort of opportunity, some sort of business opportunity, etc. The idea is usually the first step. But the author says, where value really starts to come into the equation is the opportunity. It's not just the idea floating up there, it's the opportunity. Now, the author does have a section in the chapter where the author talks about the differences between ideas and opportunities, and you probably should think about this too. I know that I asked it in the classroom, etc., and I believe that there's a figure in your book. It's figure 1 on page 7, which shows some of the things that the author thinks differentiates an idea from an opportunity. You probably should take a look at that, and as I say, also just think about what do you think is the difference between an idea and an opportunity. I'm not going to be able to cover it just given time limitations, but you should take a look at it. Another point that the author makes here with regard to what's the value of your idea is, he says, hey, all opportunities start as ideas, but not all ideas lead to opportunities. Pretty astute, right? All opportunities start as ideas, but not all ideas lead to an opportunity. He then switches the question just a bit. Instead of just saying, what's the value of an idea, he asks, are all opportunities valuable? Are all opportunities valuable? And I think you can think about this too, and you know the answer. No, of course not all opportunities are valuable. And he says that one key to value is, can you actually execute? Can you turn your idea into an opportunity? Can you actually act on it? Can you implement it? That's where value comes in, through the implementation. It's not just the idea, not just a concept, but it's turning the concept into reality. Can you act on it? Can you execute it? Can you implement it that we have? A good example of this that I oftentimes use in my classes is think about how often on New Year's Eve, one of the things that a lot of people do is they make what are called New Year's Eve resolutions. Next year I'm going to be better. I'm not going to drink as much. I'm not going to smoke as much. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to control my anger. Think of all the different things that people might say. New Year comes around, and what happens to most of these resolutions that people have? Well, after a couple of days, they're back to drinking and smoking and eating all sorts of fatty and salty foods and whatever, and they're losing their temper. They're not actually implementing their idea. So what was the value of the resolution? What was the value of the idea? Pretty much nothing. Oh, maybe for a couple of days it worked. But unless you actually implement it and execute it, there's not a whole lot of value associated with it. So the author kind of wraps this up by saying that the overall key here with regard to the value of your great idea, the overall key is coming up with ideas that lead to opportunities that can be executed or implemented. It's, again, the overall key is coming up with ideas that lead to opportunities that can be executed or implemented. And an easier way to say that is you want to be able to turn your concept into reality, turn your idea into action, turn your concept into reality. So that's the first point under this kind of introduction I have, this big idea in chapter 1. So let's go to the second one. The author then says, well, how are opportunities cultivated? Where do they come from? And the author has a couple of answers here. We'll start off with the first one. And he starts off, it says, again, a pretty astute point. He says that opportunities are an extension of the entrepreneur. Opportunities often come from within you. So where do they come from? Well, it depends on who you are. Each of us is different. We have different backgrounds, right? We have different talents and insights and perspectives and passions and fears and other things like that. We're all different. So all of us, are not going to come up with the same idea, the same opportunity, etc., because we're all different. He has an interesting way of looking at it. Comes up with a buzzword for you here that you want to keep in mind. He says, well, listen, if we're all different, again, our backgrounds and experiences and talents and everything like that, it's kind of like thumbprints. Everybody's thumbprint is different than everybody else's thumbprint. So what he says is you're the inner you, your background and talent, insights, perspectives, and fears, passions, all that different stuff. All those come together to form here's the buzzword for your buzz phrase, your entrepreneurial thumbprint, So how are they cultivated? Well, one of the things that's involved here is going to be your entrepreneurial thumbprint. Let's take a look at another point here, still kind of looking at the same topic. Where do they come from? The author mentions that, and I think you can imagine this is true as well, that opportunities come from a lot of different sources, lots of different sources. Now, before I get into what the author says, I do want to mention to you and encourage you to look at something on our Canvas website. When you go in there, you will see that amongst other things like I have the lecture notes for the day, you're going to find the link to this video, etc. there. Amongst those things and some other things as well, I have an article that I would like you to read. It's by Peter Drucker, and it's called The Discipline of Innovation. The Discipline of Innovation. Peter Drucker was extremely well known and looked upon quite highly, and was very, very knowledgeable about business. And amongst the many things that he did in life, he wrote this article, one of many. And this article talks about this discipline of innovation, talks about where we get innovative ideas. Where do we get these ideas and opportunities from? And he lists a whole bunch of sources. I'd like you to read that so you see his list of sources, some of the things that he mentions, because I think they're going to be quite relevant to you. It might even help you to find an opportunity, find an idea, can turn into opportunity, etc. So you want to take a look at that. We're going to focus in lecture not on what Peter Drucker said, but rather on what the book said. However, again, keep in mind, what Peter Drucker said is going to be fair game for the quiz that we're going to have in here. Well, let's take a look at the sources of opportunities that your author mentions, and he basically looks at four sources of opportunity. The first source of opportunity comes from an active search. Hey, listen, I want to start a business, so you start doing research on this, that, and the other. And his suggestion is what you should do is you should be looking for solutions that solve existing problems. Whatever opportunity you come up with, it should be a solution to a problem that somebody else already has. It should fill a demand that somebody else already has. So you don't want to come up with a, oh, hey, listen, I'm coming up with this thing that no one ever heard of before, and nobody really cares about, and then try to get everybody to think, oh, this is important, I need it, I want to buy it. Rather, perhaps the best thing to do insofar as your search for opportunities is, why don't you take a look at what needs people have? What problems do they have? Can you come up with something that will fulfill their needs, or something that will solve their the problems that they have? So that's a really good point. And he also adds that, just one other comment, if you find something that's relatively simple that solves a problem, or fills a gap, fills a need that we have, even if it's simple, that's not necessarily bad. Sometimes some of the best businesses that are out there, the best entrepreneurial businesses, have simple ideas. They're ideas that when you hear about them, and you hear, oh, XYZ just made $1 zillion or whatever. How many times have you smacked yourself against, smacked your hand against your head and said, oh my gosh, I thought of that. It was just so simple, so easy. In fact, everybody thought of it. Well, yeah, maybe everybody did, but only the person who made the $1 billion actually turned it into a business. So again, simple is not necessarily bad. It's just oftentimes overlooked. So again, the first of these sources, he actually mentions 4, and the first of these is an active search. The second source is just information. Information. And you might ask yourself, well, how can information lead to an opportunity? Well, there's a couple of different ways. Well, let me just give you an example of this. Let's say that, let's assume that you're a student on campus, and let's say that you find out, you get some information that there is a career fair tonight. Hasn't been well advertised, etc., but you find out there's a career fair tonight. So you have that information. So you go to the career fair, get a job offer out of it. Maybe there's some different opportunities that arise with regard to internships or postgraduate careers that you might have. But let's say there's another kid on campus who didn't get that information. Kid has no idea that there's a job fair tonight. Kid doesn't go there, doesn't develop any opportunities for a job. So information oftentimes can lead to opportunities. Now, along that line, related to that, the information you have can help you to see things and have visions. You might be able to see solutions for problems that nobody else does. And where did that come from? Probably from some of the information you have that others don't have, or information you have that you put together in a different way that others haven't. So one of the things you want to take a look at is, what's one of the sources of opportunities? Where do they come from? Information. Let's go to the third source of opportunities, and that's change. Things change. Now, things are always changing, right? I mean, nothing really stays the same. Things are always changing. But an interesting point about it is, oftentimes when there's change, some people embrace it. Oh, this is wonderful. Now, for example, let's say that you go home today and you find in your mail that some relative you never heard of just died and left you, $1 million. Clearly, your life's going to change. That's going to be a good change. You're probably going to embrace that change. But most of the time when we're hit by change, it's not someone saying, here's $1 million. Most of the time we're hit by change and we're not sure about it. We don't have all the facts. We like the way things are. Why do we want to change? We're a little afraid of the unknown, etc. So one of the things you tend to see is, with regard to change, people oftentimes see change as a threat, as a problem. Good entrepreneur will look at change as an opportunity, because when things change, oftentimes opportunities arise. Let me give you a good example of that. Not too long ago, we had the beginning of the COVID pandemic. It's no longer considered anymore a pandemic. We still have people getting COVID or whatever. But when we first did, right, think about what happened in the United States. Businesses closed down, schools closed down, we all started going home, we started working from home, we're wearing masks, we're doing all sorts of things, staying 6 feet away from people, we're not even going out and doing things like we used to, etc. Now, most of us looked at it and said, oh my gosh, what a pain in the, you can fill in the blank, this is. We didn't like it. But think about how many new businesses, new business opportunities arose from COVID. Now, I'm not saying COVID was good, it certainly wasn't. But if there's a silver lining to this cloud, if you're looking at something and some people see it half full and half empty. With regard to the people who see it half full, look at the opportunities that arose. Minimally, one opportunity was to make masks. And, other opportunities involved healthcare and other things like that. Think about the online community, Zoom and stuff. But before COVID, how many people really heard about Zoom or knew how to use Zoom or whatever? So again, another place you can find opportunities is look for change. Because when there's change, there's usually opportunities that other people haven't seen yet. And let's go to the fourth and a final source of opportunities mentioned by your author. And it involves a buzzword, one that you probably haven't heard, and it's called effectuation. Effectuation. And it's the word effect, and then uation after it, so it's E-F-F, E-C-T, U-A-T-I-O-N, E-F-F, E-C-T, U-A-T-I-O-N, effectuation. Let me tell you what it is by kind of telling you what it isn't. Effectuation is related to kind of another word that also can have something to do with finding opportunities, and that's called causation. Causation. And let me show you the difference between the two. You got a new word. What's this mean? It's really not brain science. Let's say that after I'm done teaching here and I go home, or you as a student, you go home. Let's say that you get home and you're hungry, and you actually, like me, I'm a chocoholic. I absolutely love chocolate. I love chocolate chip cookies. In fact, I think chocolate chip cookies are one of the main reasons I ended up getting married to the wonderful woman that I did. So one of the things you'll do is you go, hey, wow, love to have some chocolate chip cookies. So you go through and you find out there aren't any in the pantry or wherever you keep your stuff. So you decide, I'm going to make some chocolate chip cookies. So you open up the cupboards and everything, and you start looking for the ingredients. Oh, here's some chocolate chips, and here's some brown sugar, and da-da-da-da-da, all the different things. And then you take all those things, you put it together, and you make chocolate chip cookies. That's called causation. You have an idea already. You look for the resources to make the idea happen, and you do. Effectuation is a little different. You go home, you're hungry, and there's nothing to eat. Nothing in the pantry or whatever, so you open up the cupboards and stuff and you start looking what's up there, and you start seeing all these different ingredients. Oh, there's chocolate chips, and there's brown sugar, and there's this and there's that. Oh, I know. I can pull those different parts together. I can put them into a system. I can take those different ingredients and I can make chocolate chip cookies. So what we have here is a little bit of a difference. You come up with the idea and then look to see if we can do it, or do you have the things we can do it and look to see what can I do with those things? So effectuation is the second one. Effectuation is you go in, you see all the different parts, and you figure out how I can pull them together. Oh my goodness, look, there's something good here. We can make chocolate chip cookies. So you want to keep in mind that another source of opportunities comes from effectuation. You just see all sorts of different resources out there, and you figure a way to pull them together. And there we go, there's something new there. Let's go to the third point. And the third point goes back to that concept of thumbprint. Thumbprint. Now, I'm not going to go over the basics of thumbprint again. Your author did a pretty good job. But he says that in looking at your thumbprint, there's probably a couple things you do want to look at that you might not think of. And these include, what are you passionate about? Are you inspired by anything? That might give you an idea of a business you might want to get into. Another question you might ask yourself, again, looking at your thumbprint, what do you know well? Do you have any experience in this, that, or the other? Yeah, I know in class yesterday when I was going around and asking my students about entrepreneurs they interviewed, an awful lot of the entrepreneurs they interviewed actually started businesses after they had worked in a somewhat related job. And they got laid off or whatever, they're tired of working for their boss or whatever, and then they went out and they started some business. Well, what did they do? They started a business on something that they knew well. So maybe what you know well will help you figure out what type of opportunity you should go to. Another of the points here again about your thumbprint, who do you know? Who do you know? You've heard this saying, It's not what you know, it's who you know. And sadly, there's an awful lot of truth to that. You could be the most brilliant person, know everything, but if you don't know the right people, you're probably not going to be able to do anything with all that wonderful knowledge you have. Whereas there might be somebody out there who's a complete dumb, you fill in the blank, dumb apple, I guess, but just has all the right connections, and next thing you know, has this tremendous opportunity that the person's building. So one of the questions you want to ask as you look at that thumbprint, who do I know? You look at your social network, your professional network, etc. Can these people, can they help me out? Can they give me some tips on what to do and help me to do it? The last of the questions with regard to looking at your thumbprint, what's in a thumbprint, is you should look at what frustrates you. What frustrates you? What are you upset about? Because if you're frustrated by something, you're mad, you're upset by something, that might be good motivation. In fact, related to that, what are you motivated
It's
about?
2 o'clock.
Do you have any, fears and passions and other things like that? What frustrates you? That's another thing you might want to look at, because what I'm passionate about, that also might help you pick that opportunity, pick that idea to turn into an opportunity. Well, that finishes the third point that we want to talk about. Let's go to the fourth point. He now asks the question, what makes a great opportunity? Not just an opportunity, but what makes a great opportunity? And he has 5 points that he says, kind of answers the question. And you should think about it. As you go through life, oftentimes you'll bump into potential opportunities. Which one, if any, do you want to invest time, money in and pursue? Probably the good ones, the great ones, and not the ones that, not so good. So what makes a great opportunity? So again, let's take a look at the 5 points he makes. And the first one he had said before, which means, if he's saying it again, he thinks it's important. You know it, so do I. He says, what makes a great opportunity? First thing, it solves a problem for a potential customer. It solves a problem for a potential customer. There's a potential customer out there, has a problem. Your opportunity takes away a negative. Oh my gosh, I have headaches all the time. What am I going to do? Or it gives a positive. Oh, listen, I know you're doing really, really well today with regard to manufacturing widgets. And you've got some great equipment out there, and you make these widgets, etc. And you're making 100 widgets a minute. That is absolutely excellent. But guess what? I came out with a machine that for the same price and the same cost, etc., will make 200. So you didn't have a negative, but I'm offering you a benefit. So one of the things, it solves a problem. It either takes away a negative or it gives a benefit. And along that line, you should probably keep in mind with something that a lot of people don't. And that is, there's a difference between benefits and features. Benefits and features. Most people, you can sit there and you can read them a list of all the facts about your product that you have. All the wonderful facts, fact after fact after fact. And you recognize, if anybody listens to you or reads this stuff, they'd have to be a complete idiot not to recognize how it benefits them. But the interesting thing is, we're all busy. We're all, looking in 5 different directions. We're all overwhelmed. One of the things you want to do is when you communicate what you're doing, your new business, your new idea, your new opportunity, don't just talk about the features, talk about the benefits. Let me give you an example here. I asked one of my students in class the other day, tell me, when you graduate from college, which I think he's going to be doing later this spring, if assuming the money, you got a job and things like that, would you think about, buying or leasing a new car or vehicle? Oh yeah. What would you like? I said I'd like to get a Jeep. I said, okay, great. And he mentioned a type of Jeep, and I forget, maybe a Cherokee or something. I don't know what it was. And I said, okay, tell me one of the features of this Jeep. And he said, oh, it has 4-wheel drive. I said, that's great. Okay, we have a feature. I said, what's the benefit of 4-wheel drive? Why do you want 4-wheel? Oh, he said, I live in an area where it snows all the time. In the wintertime, the roads are always icy, etc. And I think that 4-wheel drive will make it a little bit safer for me, make it a little bit easier to get to work or whatever. Now, do you see? You can advertise all you want and tell people about the feature. It's a four-wheel drive. But maybe someplace in your message, you should tell them the benefit. It'll get you to work. It'll help make your ride safer. It'll get you going when other people are spinning, etc. So my suggestion is, when you talk about solving a problem, look for something that indeed, if it creates a benefit, let people know the benefit, not just the features, the benefit. I've oftentimes talked in class about the fact that literally everybody in your marketplace, all your potential customers, etc., literally everybody, whether you know it or not, is listening to a radio station in their head. We all are. And it's built inside. It's not like, I've got something, or whatever, look on my phone or whatever. And the radio station we are all listening to is called WIIFM. WIIFM. And that stands for What's in It for Me. WIIFM, What's in It for Me. Everybody, as you start to give your pitches and spiels and try to get their attention on this flyer and that website and all this other stuff, they're busy. They're only going to give you a little bit of attention. They want to know what's in it for me. They're listening to that radio station. And if you don't tell them what's in it for me, they're going to somebody else. It's like they're saying we're remote control and they're looking at TV stations. Think how often you go on to watch TV. There's no special program you watch. There's no football game or no series you normally watch or whatever. So you sit down, you turn it on, you've got the remote, the clicker in your hand, and click. Okay, go to channel 3. How long do you stay on channel 3 before you go to channel 4 and channel 5? Not very long. How long do you stay? Just to see, is there something there that benefits me? Is this going to interest me? Is this going to entertain me, etc.? And then you go on to the next one. Well, people are doing the same thing. They have a remote, a clicker. They're listening to this radio station. They want to know what's in it for me. Let them know. Tell them very early what's the benefit for you in this. Related to that, just a couple of our thoughts about solving a problem. There's a fellow on YouTube by the name of Cliff Ennico. Cliff Ennico, E-N-N-I-C-O. E-N-N-I-C-O. And he has a series of really good videos on YouTube about starting small businesses and being an entrepreneur and growing businesses or whatever. I'll be honest with you, he's kind of a good speaker, but sometimes his videos are a little bit long and then you might lose attention, but he is good. He's telling you some really important stuff. And generally, too, his delivery is good, etc. I really like him. I would suggest that you take a look at his videos if you really do want to start a small business, so you have this entrepreneurial venture in mind. And related to that, let me mention something here. He mentions in one of those very early on, what makes a good opportunity, what makes a good business, and he says it's something that addresses people's fears and passions. Don't go for wants and needs, go to fears and passions. If somebody is really passionate about something, start a business to fill their passion. If somebody is really afraid of something, oh my gosh, I don't want to retire with no money, come up with a business to help solve their fears or reduce their fears, etc. that they have. Fears and passions are a great way to kind of figure out what type of opportunity to pursue. Another thing that I'll mention to you is your book adds one other thing here. It says, listen, find something that thrills your customer. You got fears, passions, other things that we mentioned, benefits and features. Find something that thrills your customer. If you have a product that thrills your customer is going to not only want to buy it, but probably pay a premium for it, probably tell others about it, probably keep coming back to you. So again, find something that thrills your customer. So again, the first point of what makes a good opportunity, all this stuff was under it, it solves a problem. The second point mentioned by the author about what makes a good opportunity, it positions you in a good strategic space. It positions you in a good strategic space. Now, when we talk about positioning in business, we're not always talking about a geographic location. Oh, I got the shop on the corner versus the one in the back alley or something like that. But that can be part of it, your geographic location, where you are on the web, and maybe your online location, etc. Usually when we're talking about it in business, we're talking about where you position yourself in the marketplace. Are you, selling to, high end, or I'm in the low end, and other things like that. But just think about this. Whatever you decide, you probably want to position yourself in a good strategic space. And just for a moment, let me talk about it from a geographic standpoint. You've often heard with regard to realtors, it's location, location, location. That's the position, your location, your position. And again, it can be more than just your geographic position, but I'm going to use that here. So think about you're opening up a pizza shop, right? And with regard to the pizza shop, you have two different locations that are open, two different storefronts that you could rent. They're both same size, same price, etc. One is located right next to a huge grocery store, where people are coming and going all the time and whatever. And the other is located in a seedy section of the city where there's adult movie houses and stuff like that. Where are you going to put your pizza shop? Well, if your main customers, if you think your main customers are going to be families, etc., you're going to go by the grocery store. Why? It's a good strategic location. It's a good space. Families are coming and going all the time. Now, maybe indeed they're buying pizza in there, but they're probably buying other things too. They're probably, as they're coming and going, they're probably hungry. I don't have time to go home and eat. Plus, even if they don't buy your pizza that day, they're going to see your pizza shop every time they come in to buy groceries, etc. So it's going to be on their mind. It's great advertising for you. So this concept of positioning in a good strategic space, if we look at it just from a geographic standpoint, that's an idea. And related to that, I wanted to mention to you a couple of strategies that businesses often use. One, let me tell you, and both these, by the way, involve buzzwords or buzz phrases. One is a set of strategies. You usually go one or the other. I guess there's a little middle ground as well, but usually go one or the other. Have you ever noticed in a lot of cities, maybe where you live, a lot of car dealers locate very closely one another? You go, there's a main drag in town, and it's just car dealership, car dealership, car dealership, etc. Or maybe in your city, it's a whole bunch of fast food restaurants right next door. You got a Wendy's and a McDonald's and a Burger King and all sorts of other things, some chicken joint and other things like that. They're all together. Why are they doing that? Well, they're doing that because, I know there's a lot of other competitors here, but there's a lot of people who want to buy cars that are on the street. A lot of people who want to buy, fast food that are coming down the street. So there's a lot of customers nearby. When you choose a strategy where you locate in that position in the market, again, we're talking geographic, but it could also just be talking about your market position. When you do that, where there's a lot of competition in the water, so to speak, in your neck of the woods, this is called a red ocean strategy. A red ocean strategy. Why red? Well, you're fighting your competitors all the time. There's blood in the water. You're trying to get sales, and they're getting sales and stuff like that. How do I get people to my shop and not yours, etc.? Lots of competition. It's called a red ocean strategy. Another strategy, though, that some people take, it's kind of the flip side of it, is called a blue ocean strategy. A blue ocean strategy, which generally is saying, hey, listen, instead of locating, again, I'm going to stay with geographic stuff. Instead of putting my pizza shop in this really big city where there's a lot of people and there's lots of other businesses here, or whatever, my car dealership, maybe instead of that, maybe I'm going to go somewhat into the suburbs. So I'm going to go a little bit further where there's virtually no other competition. There's no other car dealerships or fast food restaurants or whatever. So I'm pretty much the only one out there. Now again, the number of customers have gone down, but maybe there's nobody out there serving people who are there who need it. One of the franchises, many pizza franchises that are available, is Fox's Pizza, and I had a chance to talk with the founder of Fox's Pizza, Jim Fox. And one of the things that he mentions, oftentimes the most successful franchises in his organization are not the ones that locate, downtown in the busy areas or whatever, but those that locate in these little towns and villages or whatever, where there's basically no other pizza shop. So, the people might buy pizza from some other town. It takes a little while. They got to go pick it up or whatever. But if you're the only one, probably going to get most of those people there. So it's really up to you. Blue ocean work for your red ocean, but those are two different types of strategies you might want to look at. And related to this, another strategy I wanted to mention to you is, again, talking about positioning yourself in a good strategic space. One of the things, whether you're in red ocean where you're fighting with everybody else or whether you're in blue ocean, one of the things you want to do is you want to stand out. stand out, from your competitors, stand out so that your customers notice you, etc. And if you do this, if you're unique, if you're different, if you stand out, you're basically following what's called a differentiation strategy. There's a buzzword for you, differentiation. You're being different, you're being unique, you're being different from the competition, you're standing out in a way that hopefully, attracts customers. Oh, I didn't know there was a pizza shop here, or I didn't know this car dealership was here, whatever it might be. So you might want to think about that, because differentiation can help to position you in good strategic space. Hey, I'm the only one that's selling, blue hot dogs or something like that. If there's a demand for blue hot dogs, you're in great shape, right, on that. Let's go to the third of the points he makes. What makes a great opportunity? He said what makes a great opportunity is it gives you, and here's another buzzword for you, a competitive advantage over your rivals. A competitive advantage over your rivals. Let's face it, you're going to be in competition with regard to whatever business you start. Do you want to have an advantage over your competitors, something to help you survive? Think about sports games or whatever. You see one team playing another. Usually the team that wins had some sort of competitive advantage. They had a better player playing one day. They had a better strategy, better coaching or whatever. They had a competitive advantage. You certainly don't want to have competitive disadvantage. Having a competitive advantage is something that might really help. In addition to that, it wouldn't be a bad idea if your competitive advantage, whatever you have, is something that will last a long time. You don't want to just beat your competitor today. You want to beat your competitor going forward in the future. An example I have for you, just a kind of a quick one, is back in the 1960s. There were basically four major fast food burger chains in the United States. You had Burger King and Burger Chef and Wendy's, and I forget, McDonald's, of course. McDonald's, Burger King, Burger Chef, and Wendy's. Those are the four large kids on the block, so to speak. Wendy's, I believe, was the newest of them, the youngest of them, probably the smallest. And Wendy's and they're always fighting, all of them fighting for market share and whatever. And, one day you might go up and another day down or something. But generally speaking, everybody kind of stayed the same, maybe a little bit of fluctuation, but stayed the same. And Wendy's came out with an idea that at the time no other fast food restaurant, at least that I know of, was using. And Wendy's came out with the idea, why don't we have a drive-through window? Nobody had really heard of drive-through windows before. You usually had to go to these fast food restaurants, had to get out of your car and pick up your kids. You got to get them in the store and get them out. You got to order this, that, and the other, and stuff like that. So Wendy's, I believe it was Wendy's, came up with the idea, hey, listen, why don't we put a hole in the wall and, a little window around it, etc., and people can just drive by and, we'll give them the order there. It's just as easy for us as if you're standing in line in here. So they put in a drive-through window. Now, I want you to think about this. The other fast food chains at the time didn't have a drive-through window. So if you're going to be buying, some burgers for the family and the kids, etc., as you're coming home from work at night, where are you going to stop? I can go to Wendy's where I get in the drive-through. I don't have to get in my car to get the stuff and go home. Or I can go to, McDonald's or Burger King or Burger Chef or whatever, where I got to park, I go in, stand in line, etc., get things, got to carry everything back out to the car and leave. Of course, what ended up happening is a lot of people did what you probably are thinking of too. Hell, I'm going to go to Wendy's. They've got a drive-through. So for a while, Wendy's had a competitive advantage. Their market share went up, more people were going. That makes sense. But what do you think happened in the boardrooms, in the executive offices, executive suites of McDonald's and Burger King and Burger Chef? They're jumping up and down saying, oh my God, let's put in drive-through windows too. Now, if they were bigger chains, etc., it took longer for them to do that. It took them, of course, you got more bureaucracy, you got to get the money and everything else like that. So, it took them a year, 2 years or whatever to kind of catch up. Well, during that 1 or 2 years, Wendy's was unique and different. It was following that differentiation strategy we talked about and had a competitive advantage. But after a while, after the competitors all had drive-through windows, Wendy's was no longer unique, was no longer different. So its competitive advantage, its market share, which had grown, all of a sudden came down. If everybody else is here and Wendy's started here, opens up the window, goes up here. Well, over time, as these people end up putting in windows, Wendy's market share ends up coming down to about where it had been before. So one of the things you want to do is, if you come up with something that makes you different, you want to make sure that whatever makes you different can't be easily copied or imitated by the others, because if so, then the competitive advantage you had, you're probably not going to be able to sustain it very long. And what do you want to get? One of the things makes an opportunity great is having a competitive advantage, particularly one that you can sustain. Let's take a look at the fourth point under what makes a great opportunity. The author says, hey, it has a reasonable potential for success. It's not just pie in the sky, etc. If I do all this stuff, I've done some homework, etc. I think the numbers are going to add up. I think the market's out there, etc. I think the pricing is right. It has a reasonable potential for success. That's not a bad opportunity. I mean, there are some crazy ideas that people come up with that no one ever thought of before. The differentiation, perhaps, no one ever thought before, but they are nuts. I don't know, swimming trunks for cats, right? What cat goes swimming? Oh, great idea. Nobody else is making swimming trunks for cats. And look at all the cats in the United States. I've got a market share, etc. Who wants it? So again, does it have a reasonable potential for success? Or you come up with a great idea, but it requires a ton of money. You're living on a shoestring budget. It's not necessarily going to be reasonable potential for success. So that's another thing. And then the final suggestion here about what makes a great opportunity, final answer, is the author says, it fits your thumbprint. This opportunity fits you. It fits your desires, your passions, your knowledge, your interests, etc., your resources or whatever. It fits your thumbprint. So another buzzword, I guess you could look here, is the word fit. Fit is really important. And, you should keep in mind that there could be some really great things out there, but they're not you. And if they're not you, either you change or they change. And that could cause a lot of turmoil, etc. Try to find an opportunity right from the get-go that fits your thumbprint, that fits you. Let's go to the fifth point mentioned in this chapter. And again, that finishes up the fourth, which was what makes a great opportunity. Let's go to the fifth point. There's some considerations he mentioned, some other considerations. And all I'm going to suggest is take a look at his book. They're actually good ones. A lot of them, etc., have already taken up so much of your time as it is. Let's go then to the final topic for today's lecture, and that is the nature of competitive advantage. We kind of talked about it, right, with regard to Wendy's and some of the things that we said, the nature of competitive advantage. And he has a couple of points that he makes here, and again, this really does go back a lot to that Wendy's case I just told you. Your competitive advantage is oftentimes based on whatever you have is valuable to your customer. It's valuable to your customer and it's valuable to you because of that. Another point about your competitive advantage, whatever it is, it gives you that advantage over your competitors. Oh, the drive-through window that we have. It's rare or hard and expensive to come by. It's rare, hard, or expensive to come by. You've got it, they don't. They're either not going to be able to get it or it's going to take them a long time. It would take them a lot of money, etc. to get it. It's rare or hard or expensive to come by. Another comment here about what gives you a competitive advantage, it's not easily imitated or copied. Not easily imitated or copied. Remember what happened to Wendy's? Well, the other places put in drive-through windows, and it took them a while, so that helped Wendy's out for that while. But once they all had their drive-throughs in, the competitive advantage that Wendy's had basically faded away. They weren't able to sustain it. There's a buzzword for you. We're not only looking for a competitive advantage, but we're looking for a sustainable competitive advantage. Another point here about the nature of competitive advantage, whatever you have, it's not easily substituted by something else. Let's say, for example, you go into a little burg or borough, town, village, whatever it is, and nobody there has a hamburger outfit. So you open up this really wonderful hamburger restaurant and it's really great, etc. But then somebody opens up a chicken outfit next to you, and they're selling, instead of hamburgers, they're selling chicken sandwiches or whatever. Odds are a lot of your customers who are buying hamburgers from you wouldn't mind on occasion substituting a chicken sandwich for a hamburger. So whatever competitive advantage you have, not only should it not be copied or easily copied or imitated, it also shouldn't be easily substituted by something else. Because if they do, well, why go to you? I can go to them. And then the last thing that your author mentions, the final thing, and you're probably saying, oh my God, thank goodness, sounds like he's getting to the end of this, and you're right, is this competitive advantage should be built on distinctive competencies, something that you have that maybe others don't, or maybe a combination of competencies that you have that others don't. These can be such, maybe you're very agile, whatever you came up with, you're very agile, very, very flexible. Maybe you have specialized knowledge. I had a student in one of my classes, his father had worked for a nuclear engineering facility, and he came up with some ideas of some products that could be sold to nuclear engineering facilities. So he left there, started his own business, and started making these products that he sold to other nuclear engineering facilities. Well, he had specialized knowledge, so maybe you have specialized knowledge. Maybe you know something that others don't. Maybe you have a talent that others don't. Maybe, for example, you are just a tremendous musician. Maybe you have talent that others don't. There could be a competitive advantage there. Another competitive advantage you might have, maybe you're a really good team builder. Maybe you've put together a team. You will be able to fit all the people on a team, all the players, etc., really well together. You've recruited well, etc. That team that you have, that cohesion, etc., that you have, that could be a competitive advantage. The fit of all the parts could be a competitive advantage. And another potential competitive advantage, particularly for a new and small business, is maybe you're lean and mean. Maybe you're lean and mean. You don't need as much capital and cash as everybody else does. You don't need as much income. You don't need as much sales. And you're able to run this business, lean and mean. That might give you a competitive advantage too. So this concludes what I want to talk to you about with regard to your big idea. Whatever you come up with, all sorts of things I mentioned here, you should come up with an idea that gives you a competitive advantage, one you can sustain, one that fits you and fits your thumbprint, etc. But one of the things you should keep in mind is whatever idea you come up with should be something that creates value. And how do you create value? Well, the idea you have is something that can be implemented, it's something you can act upon, something you can execute, and turn it into an opportunity. Don't just come up with a crazy idea. Don't come up with something that isn't going to create value for you and others, because you'll spend an awful lot of time, and most entrepreneurs are really good at having work days that are 24/7 long, or work weeks that are 24/7 long, etc. If you're going to invest that much of your time and your stress, etc., in it, plus your money as well, shouldn't it be on something that is a good opportunity? Shouldn't it be something that was a big idea that you're able to turn into and implement into a good opportunity? You betcha. Well, I hope Chapter 1 was able to give you some insights and some thoughts about what you should do with regard to a business, what ideas you could use, what concepts you can use, what opportunities are out there. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be concluding now. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in our next class. Bye-bye, everybody.